Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming, whether you're in person or joining us virtually. I'm CE Gatchalian. I'm the guest 2S LGBTQIA plus curator for Word Vancouver this year. It's been a great experience. Um, Before we start, I just want to acknowledge that Word Vancouver takes place on the unceded homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. And I want to pay a special tribute to these nations' storytellers uh, who continue to pave the way for all of us. Thank yous in order to our sponsors. Thank you to Connects UBC, the UBC Library, and UBC Robson Square for their sponsorship, which made this space available to us. We'd like to take a moment to thank our generous festival donors and sponsors, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Canada Heritage Fund, BC Gaming, Creative BC, the City of Vancouver, DBVIA, Hamber Foundation, the Joseph Wask Foundation, the Asian Canadian Writers Workshop, Seawill, Pace and Associates, the Federation of BC Writers, the League of Canadian Poets, and the Writers Union of Canada. For a full list of our partners, please visit Word Vancouver's website, wordvancouver.ca. Without you, this free festival could not happen. So if you haven't already, please consider making a donation via Word Vancouver's website. So welcome everyone to No Bullshitting, pardon the French. Yeah, I think the title is pretty self-explanatory. These are very bold works that we're going to be hearing excerpts from today. And I'm thrilled to welcome three wonderful, fabulous natives with us today: Yolanda Bonnell, Carellin Brooks, and Sami Alwani. So I think without further ado, we'll start with the readings. We'll begin the readings. So first up is Yolanda Bonnell. So Yolanda Bonnell, pronouns they, she, is a bi, queer, two-spirit Anishinaabe Ojibwe, South Asian mixed performer, playwright, and multidisciplinary creator / educator. Originally from Fort William First Nation, Ontario, her arts practice is now based in Chegaronto. In February 2020, Yolanda's four-time Dora-nominated solo show Bug, which is what she'll be reading from today, was remounted at Theatre Passe Morai, while the published book, Scirocco, published by Scirocco Drama, was shortlisted for a Governor General's Literary Award. In 2022, her play White Girls in Moccasins was produced at Buddies in Bad Times, as well as the Frank Theatre here on Coast Salish territory. Yolanda was the first Indigenous artist recipient of the JU Arts for Human Rights Award for her work, and won the PGC Tom Hendry Drama Award for her play My Sister's Rage, which was produced by Tarragon Theatre in 2022. Yolanda has taught and facilitated at schools like York University and Sheridan College, and proudly bases her practice in land-based creation on energy and inspiration from the earth and her ancestors. Please welcome Yolanda Bonnell.
Ani, miigwech, thank you for having me here today. I'm going to read an excerpt from Bug. I'm going to read some of the beginning and then I'm going to jump to the end. And I'll explain a little bit about it as I go along. So, Bug. Circles. A drum beat. Ancestors move through time and presence themselves, conjuring our story. The ancestors dance. A tree grows and dies and grows and dies and continues to cycle. An elder speaks. What you don't understand is where it came from. You don't understand why. The root that grew into a tree of poison and self loathing. What you don't understand is how difficult it is to navigate the branches when everyone wants to cut down the tree. The tree is sick. What you don't understand is that the tree is sick. The poisoned cycle so much it became embedded into our bark. Sickness was planted in us, and we are trying to get well. Everything is heavier, harder. What you don't understand is that trauma set us up to fail, like the policies that failed. What you don't understand is how resilient we are. What you don't understand is how important it is that we live, keep living, despite the poison of trauma that runs in our veins. The tree may be sick, but our ancestors are lush green leaves that continue to give us life. The girl is born in this cycle and speaks from within it. She is here because of the strength of her ancestors. Breath. Remember. Hi. I'm scared. I'm scared that she's going to forget me. That she's going to forget my eyes, my hands, my touch on her skin. I'm afraid that she won't hear my voice, you know? I don't want her to end up like me. Become Manadoons. Manadoons 1, Blue Pavement. Shh. Can you hear it? Crawling, crawling on the blue pavement, crawling on the floors, on her skin, making her move. The sounds of escape, the pitter pitter of helplessness, the patter patter of despair, the tip and the toe of running towards the thing she loves the most in this world, of thirst and need and want and become human. Fireflies. The girl is young and on a path in a forest on her reservation. She giggles and catches something in her hands. I used to call them glowies, and they were the only bugs I couldn't talk to because they always flew so far away from me. She dances with the fireflies. All I wanted to do was catch one and tell it my secrets. She whispers a secret into her hands. They were so small, though, so tiny, it seemed impossible. There was a part of me that wanted to squish it, you know? Squish it and take its light and rub it all over me so that I would glow in the dark, too. But when I saw them in the sky, blinking with their light, I just wanted to see where they were going to light up next. So I followed their trail, guessed their path. Nothing else mattered but seeing it light up again. Did you know that some types of female fireflies can't fly? I mean, what's the point of being a firefly if you can't fly? I caught one once. I was so sure. The girl slowly and sneakily opens her hand and then eats what is there, or what is not there. It travels through her body and she feels herself being yanked backwards. My girl, a support group. The mother sits in a chair. The mother puts out one finger, then another, and another, and another, until 4 are up. This is my 4th time. Number 4. 4th time's the charm. Isn't that what they say? This is it. This is it. No more after this. I'm telling you, boy, I'm done. I'm tired. I'm old. You want me to talk, eh? You always want me to talk. What you want me to talk about this time? My girl. My girl was perfect. She was perfect. You know, she barely even cried when she was a baby. Swear to God, that baby barely even cried. She make these little squeak noises, like a little mouse. My little mouse baby. She was so small too, just she indicates the baby's size, you know? Remember having her at the hospital up there, and even the nurses would say, "Oh, she's so tiny. Look how tiny she is, so small," waving their white fingers in her face. I was scared at first because, thought there might have been something wrong with her. Because, we didn't know back then. We didn't know what we were doing. But they let me take her home. She had her own crib and everything. She looks to someone in the circle. "Hey, can I have a smoke?" They didn't say we couldn't smoke here, right? "Can I have one?" She takes 2 cigarettes, puts one behind her ear, and walks away. "Thanks." The girl sits and watches her mother on the couch as a 5-year-old. I watched her. She was passed out on the couch. A spider fell from the roof and landed on her head. She didn't even notice. It creeped slowly across her forehead, around her eyebrows, down her cheek. I sat and watched. I wanted to see her eat it. You know that thing where they say you eat like a whole bunch of spiders in your lifetime while you sleep? That's what I wanted. I wanted to see her eat that spider, or the spider eat her. She sits and watches for a moment. Neither happened, though. It disappeared behind her body, but I like to think that spider is still attached to her somewhere. She is being taken away, buried in her skin. The girl begins her journey through various foster homes as a physical score or repetitive gesture. So now the girl has had a child, and like her mother, she's also had that child taken away. And the following scenes are the beginning of her healing journey. Home. She walks the same path she did in the beginning. Slowly, as she speaks, ancestors begin to reveal themselves. There's this path in the woods near my auntie's house on the res. This is where I used to try and catch them. The glowies, the fireflies. There's a point in the middle where you can stand and not see any houses no matter which way you look. Like I can look over there and know that my cousin's house is there, but I can't see it, It's just trees and birds and rays of sunshine in the day and a little moonlight at night, and those fireflies. It's quiet. It's peaceful. It's home. And I want to bring her here someday. My little ladybug, when I want her to see this and feel this and know that not everything is shit. I need her to know that her ancestors are lush green leaves that give her life. My auntie used to tell me stories, and I never really paid attention, but being here, a drum beat. I can hear them. I can feel them. Here. They've been here the whole time. She hears her ancestors. She basks in their strength and love. She grabs something from the air. She holds it up in her fist, circling. And now, I swear, I'm glowing in the dark too. I am glowing. I'm glowing. She goes to open her hand, but it goes dark before she does. Fireflies flicker in the dark. Hope. Safety. And that was Bug. Miigwech.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yolanda.
Miigwech.
So our next reader is Carellin Brooks. Carellin Brooks has written 5 books and edited 2 collections. Her first, Bad Jobs, My Last Shift at Albert Wong's Pagoda and Other Ugly Tales of the Workplace, published by Arsenal Pull Press, was inspired by personal experience. Her second collection, Carnal Nation, Brave New Sex Fictions, also published by Arsenal, co-edited with Brett Joseph Grubisic, advanced the thesis that Canadians are sexy. Results were mixed. Every Inch a Woman, published by UBC Press, an academic monograph about the phallic woman in 20th century texts, stems directly from her ultimately successful 2010 PhD thesis. Wreck Beach, a social geography of the most beautiful nude beach in the world, published by New Star, was a naked bid for out of office quote unquote research. Fresh Hell, published by Demeter, an anti baby book about mother's first year, was written to keep maternal insanity at bay. These results were also mixed. 100 Days of Rain, published by Book Thug, right? Book Thug, won both the Relit Award for Best Small Press Book of the Year in Canada and the Edmund White Award for debut LGBT fiction from Pink Triangle Press in the United States. Learned, yes, Learned, Brooks's first book of poetry, chronicles the first person narrator's time at Oxford University and in the underground lesbian sadomasochistic scene in London. This is a mouthful. That was a great bio. Please welcome Carellin Brooks.
Thank you so much, Chris. I think I know 2/3 of the audience here, so that's awesome. That Effie and I hope to get better acquainted in the future. I apologize for having my head cut off, but I do kind of need to stand up to recite these poems, which you two have heard before. But I'm going to recite 3 poems today. The first one is called On Offer, and it's from early in the narrator's time in England, where she's kind of sussing out this SM scene and trying to think about maybe what she could possibly gauge, what acts would interest her. And it's kind of got that feeling like when you go to a foreign country and you go to a supermarket for the first time and you're kind of thinking, wow, look at all these strange things that I could acquire. The second thing to know about this poem is that the first speaker in the poem is called the Canadian, and the Canadian is the narrator's foil in this book. She's a compatriot, but she endlessly mocks the narrator's pretensions and kind of, casts doubt on her whole project of sexual learning and says, what the heck do you think you're doing? So, On Offer, King's Cross, autumn 1993. What would you get up to if left to your own devices? No point arguing. Sigh. I'll just have to come with you. Tube to anonymous, nondescript streets, stacked brick buildings, humped indistinct masses. Open doorway, blank warehouse front, dim bulb, spiky-haired, fish-netted girl, folding table perch, enameled cash box. Black lipstick, silver scaled weight, lidded glance, taking in Canadians' khaki trousers, no fetish wear, extra 20 quid then. Inside the cavernous dark cathedral heights, stern mistress stalks by, gaze fixed on invisible future, leashed slave on all fours scrambling to follow. Lucky, I murmur, inaudible, face aflame, averted. Metallic taste bump, gritted teeth, horse's bit, metal chew, sucked smooth. Could I? Is that what I want? Each niche around the circumference of the vast space, a separate saint sanctum. Holy wax stripped on writhing form, acolytes bending to the rack. Drawn out howl, no! Squirming in sympathy and continue the tour. Merchandise area, another gauntlet to run. Care to try our new electrical device? Twiddling the knobs. Some people find it quite stimulating. Make believe, fairy tales, dress up for adults. The Canadian waves. Ooh, I'm so scared. What's the point? Don't you want to be someone else? More exciting, sideways at her dockers. Braver, cheap sex shop vinyl mini. Dangerous, faraway blows, grunts. An enormous man in hip waders, salty and hot smell of him, catches sight of me, sniffing nasal, yes? Don't you ever want to disappear? The second and third poems that I'm going to recite for you today are counterpart poems. The whole book is, as you two know, Effie, the whole book is a series of counterpart poems. Left justified ones are about Oxford and the life of the mind, and the right justified ones are about her bodily learning, and they usually take place in London, although not the one I'm going to read third. The two things to know about this poem that I'm going to read next are that Lillettes are a brand of tampon in the UK, similar to Tampax, quite a well-known brand, and that Oxford has 3 terms, and Michaelmas is the 3rd term. It's the one closest to summer. This poem is called Body. Oxford, Michaelmas, 1995. How I'd sat and spun, night after night, desperate to save my voice, extolling the text, sex for these female characters. The moral tutor bent under the weight of books pressing in all around, a pulse in his throat where I thrummed too. But what about Freud? How do you take his notion of the Unheimlich? Have you compared translations? Are you reading the Hogarth edition? Sure. Trundled again to the camera, whitewash under the dome, submitted, search me. Clear plastic sheath, Lillette slipped through a reddened hand, another porter's thick fingers, price of admission, great scholarship, precious volumes. Apply at the desk in case of fainting couch in the anteroom of the ladies on the landing. Knotted, straight-necked thrust, my reticule, snap, nestling in my moistened palm. Little slip and slide, recaptured, precious. Official letter, smoothed white paper, read again. What does it mean? Failed to qualify. Just a formality, he assured. Nothing to worry about. A few tap, tap, lined. So I bent again to the task, imprisoned as the miller's beautiful daughter in a roomful of straw. Undergraduates hooting in the lane Saturday night, leaving spattered vomit circles for Sunday morning. Same official letterhead, same words again. What do they mean? I told you, tutor's blue-eyed gaze. Had performed maidenly duty, shining piles all around, hadn't I? I told you it would never pass. So the third poem that I'm going to recite for you is called Blow, and it's the counterpart poem to Body. Some of it takes place, it opens in the pub, the Gay Men's Leather Bar, where the narrator has had various adventures. And one of the things that she and her compatriots have kind of tried to do is reclaim public space through sexual acts. But even as she's in the graveyard in this particular poem, she is starting to think that perhaps these acts are very ephemeral, just as her own time in England is, and that she's not going to make much of a mark or change much of anything. This poem also contains a ghost. Blow. London. Shoreditch, London. Summer 1995. Maidens in toilets. Closets. Rooms overhead. Gold coins dropped. Dark gutter. How I kneel and pray. Lucky glimmering nights. Murmured yeses in the dark. Our silent watching chorus. Witnesses. Such devotion. Touching, really, if I say so myself. Vault a fence over easy, locked gate. No obstacle to our seeking. Get inside. Settled flesh, cold concrete plinth. But what about you? Yes. Parted skirts, liquid gasp. Pale thighs scraping against her Levi's. Hot well. Cord. Footsteps on the path outside the cemetery. Clicking away breath. Stop. Man on a bicycle, faraway path bisecting ours, straight ahead stare, then out of our sight, let's go. Tumble back into living world, vivid sodium streetlight glow. Pull up, reel on, top deck, late night drunk bus. Leering lads set up a hue. Go on then, what do you like? Safe enough, squeezed gush, secret looks. Between us, we remember my pleadings. Punish me for everything I've forgotten that should have been a permanent memory. Strange lips, folded, lavish, rising ripe. Round the circle, thigh to thigh, lurch and swivel, her weight press. Hoots from behind, rested shoulder. Hand in hers, my breath landing between collarbone and ear. Tender nestle, grateful to be shown again. Laying down of the lash, striped cane, scalpel slice, candle drip, gas mask breathing loud in my ears, sudden prick of little sharp in the fleshy mount, between finger and thumb, sudden spike of pleased surprise. Ah. Home waits, patient as ever. Separate piece, credit rating wiped clean. Dip body in sea, let hot sun for once burn away sins, vanished scot-free, just as I'd planned and wanted and decided I deserved. Old country, new world for my plunder. So maybe I don't have to spin the straw as I imagined. Maybe the door never locked, swung open at a touch. Marks heal, burns fade. No guarantee, no body ever promised. Only these particular nights and each other. Selfless. Thank you.
Terrific, Carellin. Thank you. Thank you so much. Our final reader to this afternoon tonight is Sami Alwani. Sami Alwani is our cartoonist and illustrator based in Toronto. His comics have appeared in Best American Comics, Vice, Now Magazine, Carte Blanche, Broken Pencil, and the Fantagraphics anthology Now. He has been nominated for an Ignatz Award and the Cartoonist Studio Prize. He received a Doug Wright Award in 2018 for his story The Dead Father, and again in 2022 for his first book, The Pleasure of the Text, published May 2021 with Conundrum Press. Please welcome Sami Alwani.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. Am I coming through? Everything looks good. So I'm going to read a story from my book called The Idiot. It's pretty old now, actually, but I've never gotten a chance to read it. In part, it's like a little intense, so I hope it's not too intense for everybody, but I figure if you're here for a panel called No Bullshitting, then maybe you're up for it. So it's the second thing I probably wrote in this collection. and I'm still pretty happy with it. So I guess there's not a lot of preamble necessary because it's self-contained and it's its own narrative. So I guess I'll just dive in, and great. We can put that full screen. Okay. How are we looking here? Great. The Idiot. Oh, hello. Welcome to my studio. Would you like a tour? Okay. Well, this is my writing center, uh, and my paint station. And this is the magic art making machine that produces all of my stories. What is a story, you ask? Well, a story is just a theoretical construct without any innate meaning or value, just like everything else we encounter on Earth. Let me show you how the machine works. We start with just a few simple ingredients and pour them into the machine. Graphite, money, just regular paper. These papier-mâché masks I made of my father. Art historical references. Durer. Goya. The spinning cogwheels I see superimposed over my vision during anxiety attacks. Real-life observations. Men are sometimes more attractive when seen from afar than they are when seen up close. The final ingredient necessary for the functioning of my art-making machine are my own human tears. Excuse me a moment. Capitalism, homophobia, institutionalized racism, colonial history, rape culture, systemic oppression. Now the machine is ready. Once I pull this lever, the machine begins. The ingredients are put through a top secret material transformation and come out the other end as art. The whole process takes about an hour. Exciting! Can I offer you a cup of coffee in the meantime? So, how are you? Uh-huh. That's nice. Oh, how am I? I'm okay. No, really, I'm fine. Haha. Do you ever get the feeling like everything you do is meaningless? Oh God, my head. I'm so tired. Meanwhile, inside the machine. No matter how hard I try, I just end up feeling alienated from everyone around me, unable to relate to anyone, even my closest friends. Who do I have to blame when I'm the one pushing them away? I'm really smart, but I'm not happy. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'll cut the tab of acid in half and take half. And then I might take a whole pill of Adderall, or I might cut that up too and just take a little bit. I'm not suicidal. Don't worry. I just like to write about suicide because life is so horrible. The other day, I was sitting in a coffee shop sketching, and I just started thinking about people. Psychosis can maybe grip an entire nation. Everything is tainted by humans. And I just started crying. I was so scared someone would notice me crying and think, why is that man crying? Well, he's drawing me. Sometimes I just want to scream, you know? I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to deal with this. You just came to see some stupid art. Stupid. Well, let's see how we did. Perfect. Another perfect art object. Ta-da! Thank you.
That's great, Sami. Thank you so much. It was awesome. All right. It's chat time. So, yeah. So that was awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Carellin. Thank you, Sami. Thank you, Yolanda. So yeah, I just have some lead off questions, and then I'll pass it on to the audience in a few minutes. But I mean, as the audience, as I'm sure you all noticed, there's a mix of genres in this session. Poetry, we have drama, we have graphic fiction, and this was by design. This was just kind of part of my overall approach as guest curator this year to, do what I can to break down silos. And that includes breaking down silos for readers for whom, sometimes readers, might feel they're, you know, only interested in particular genres and not interested in others. So yeah, so I just wanted to, generate some cross pollination and kind of awaken people's interests in reading genres that they might not otherwise be interested in exploring. So, with that in mind, I wanted to ask each of you about the particular genres that you're writing in. So maybe Yolanda, I'll start with you. We're both playwrights. It's been a lifelong struggle for me as a playwright to get um, people, most people to read plays as opposed to seeing plays, but to actually read plays and appreciate plays as books, as standalone books, as literature. So, yeah, I'm just wondering, as a playwright, as a published playwright, why should people read plays?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. Like, often we say like plays aren't, plays are meant to be read out loud. You're meant to like the words are written to be lifted off the page. But there's, as a writer, especially when I'm writing my plays, I'm really invested, first of all, in the world building, and a lot of that has to do with like the stage directions. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from Nina Lee Aquino, who she was like, don't write the play as if you're writing a play. Like, don't write it as if you're saying like they go to the stage, on the stage they do this, and then the lights do this, because then you're like, it's like you're seeing it on stage. But then build the world that they're in, make it like, work on the world, make it alive, and the director can deal with it. The director is the one who has to deal with making it come to life, right? So I could be like, she floats through the air, or like fireflies light up the space. Like, I'm not saying it like comes from the light. I'm saying like the fireflies are actually there, and then it becomes somebody else's job to make that come to life on stage. But in the text, it's for me, I really love now writing my stage directions as like a literary device to not only get the performer to understand like what the mood is or where the tone is at the time and the world, but like also for designers to pick up on it. And because it just makes it easier, like for me anyway, to read. I'm not taken out of the world by saying they go stage left or they go stage right, which is not to say that all those plays that do that take me all the time out of the world. But it's nice to like, I don't know, I think it's nice to like stage directions are fun to read, and it's really interesting to see where different playwrights take their settings and their universes and their world building. I think that plays have a lot to offer in terms of like action. It's moving things forward constantly, because you can't stall or stop because it's performed, so you have to keep it going, right? And I actually just recently wrote a young adult novel, and so it was really interesting to see like the difference between writing a play and writing a novel, and then like going back and reading and like the editing process and how I planned everything. And yeah, those differences were quite like, oh yeah, this is a different form, you know. But yeah, I think more people should read plays, or like even read plays out loud to yourself when you're like alone. That's super fun. Or like reading them with other people is fun too. They don't always have to be performed on stages. Sometimes they can just be read, and there's some deep beauty in that, in the words and the directions. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Yolanda. And yeah,
Okay.
I think you took the words right out of my mouth. You couldn't have, I wouldn't have expressed it any better than you did in terms of why people should read plays. It's also great at writing, that you said you've just finished writing or in a young adult novel. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, I just finished it, and it's my literary agent just sent it off to publishers, so we'll see.
right. That's terrific. That's terrific. That's terrific that you're
Yeah.
branching out. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Yolanda. Carellin, there are a lot of poetophobes out there. So, and this is your first book of poetry. So, why? So, well, first of all, how was it? What was the process like of delving into this? What for you was a new, kind of a new genre, and what do you say to poets who are afraid that they're not smart enough to get poetry? So,
Well, I'd say, hey, join the club. I'm in it too. I mean, I wouldn't have done poetry if I had any other choice, but I tried this material as a novel and as a memoir, and both of those were soundly rejected by my publisher. So I was dragged to poetry kicking and screaming. I lived with a poet. Do you know how long a poet can fixate on whether to use a colon or a semicolon? Like days can go by, or like where to break the line. It's if you think that the normal mode of thinking is maybe a bit slow, like a poet makes us look like rapid fire kind of, you know. So I think that, like a play, like Yolanda was saying, poetry really does deserve to be read aloud, and that's where I love it best, is when I go to a reading and the poet is reading from her work. That's amazing. And it's almost, I feel like that's my guided meditation when the poet is reading her poem to a room full of people. So I would say, if you'd like to find inner calm, if you'd like to have all those benefits that you get, poetry can get you there.
great, thanks, Carellin. Sami, so this question is actually coming somewhat from me because I'll be honest, I don't read a lot of graphic fiction. So, but what I have read, I've really loved, including your book, and maybe most especially your book.
Okay.
And yeah, what do you say to people like me who, for what reason, are not up to speed on graphic fiction? Why should people read graphic fiction?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not so dogmatic that I would say somebody should or shouldn't read any sort of media. I think comics are the best medium for me, simply because I think the industry is really nascent. It's really young still, And there isn't a lot of precedent, there isn't a lot of baggage, there aren't hangups, because you're not really thinking about what's been done with the medium before. I mean, in terms of alternative comics and the graphic novel form, it's literally about, barring, historical sources, it's about like 50 years old, maybe at max. So there's a lot of really exciting, new, refreshing, experimental work, and the boundaries of the medium are really still being pushed and explored in a very real way. So that's one thing that really attracts me to comics. I think it's also an extremely versatile medium in that it can look 100,000 different ways. Like, I like to think that comics, you know, ideally, you can do everything that a prose fiction book could do, because you can use words in any way you'd like to. And I would say that you could also do pretty much anything that a piece of visual art can do as well, because you have all of these sort of visual vocabulary at your hands to kind of make use of. And I would say it also can do like a lot of what movies can do. But unlike movies, without like a $4 billion budget, I can say a lot of stuff that, a film industry would never allow me to say. So I think all those things combined, like literature gives you a very sort of focused and meditative and sustained way of thinking. Visual arts, it's very like you can use a lot of you can reference a lot of things, which for me, as sort of like I like to think my work is sort of collage like, so I can lift from a lot of different places. And in terms of the cinematic kind of reference, it's like it's very experiential. I think cinema really like plays on people's nerves and makes them feel really intensely. So I think it all adds up to a lot of different things open to exploration in comics, and there's a lot of cool work being made. That would be my elevator pitch for comics.
Great. Thanks, Sami.
Thanks.
Just want to make good use of our time. We have seven minutes left. Yeah. Any questions? Any questions from the audience? Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
I love graphic novels. I read quite a few of them and really appreciate them. And I just want to make this comment to you, Sam. It's so great to have you do the voice animation. Well, you get to see your
Thank you.
drawings, it's really a fun format. It's, we were all chuckling. I don't know if you can hear us, but
No,
the
I
same
couldn't.
thing, like I've heard Carellin's work before, and she knows how I feel about that. But to see it animated like that with you there, knowing that it's your work, it makes it like I find graphic novels generally very powerful, but to have that presented that way was particularly engaging, and really compelling. The same way, and this is related to what I wanted to say to all three of you, is that in the same way that reading a play out loud is, and it's funny because that's how it came to like the theater, was by reading it out loud. Because I love reading novels, I found them a little too dense, a little hard to get into. But of course, you're reading a play, it's like hearing people talk. So, sorry, there's a fly right here looking at me and wondering what it's doing. It seems to be trying to get me to stop talking. And the last thing I want to say, and this is to all three of you, it's like, it's not surprising that it's called no bullshitting, but it's so courageous. The subject matters that you presented today, and I just want to say how much I appreciate that bravery and the kind of vulnerability of all three of you. It's really moving in very different ways. For all three of you, it's a very different response from me. I don't know how the other people here feel, but it's surprisingly like evocative sitting here listening to the three of you who are so different and so engaging and so moving, but like I say, not in the same way. Different emotions for each responses to all three of you. So it's just a comment, my question, but thank you. I should say many comments, but anyway.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming. Any other questions from the audience?
I'm kind of interested just to hear everyone's thoughts. I mean, it's a big, huge stuff, more than 5 minutes left kind of thing, but these kind of events remind me that in terms of identity, being a writer feels like an identity. And I really feel that a lot. I mean, and that's while I'm dealing with issues around, sexual orientation as an identity, being a barely recreational hockey player as an identity, Vancouver Islander. How do you, to put it to you, I mean, how do you work with, how do you perceive identity yourselves in terms of your writing? Does it play I know about Carellin, of course, but does it play a role, a strong role in what you decide to write about?
So I'm just going to repeat the question for the audience online. So how does your identity play a role in your work or inform your work as artists, as creatives? Who wants to go first?
I can jump in. I identify as many things. So I'm a part of many different communities, being Anishinaabe Ojibwe is an Indigenous community. I'm queer, Two-Spirit, I'm fat, I'm disabled. And so I have a lot of different communities that I serve or that serve me or that I'm a part of, that I feel as a big part of my identity. And so a lot of my work is specifically about or like geared towards Indigenous women or femmes, and Indigenous youth specifically. And all of those, I because I think me growing up on a reservation and being an Indigenous femme myself and understanding the implications of that only when I was older, and not understanding it when I was younger really had an impact on me. And so a lot of the stories I write are really like young Native people, young Native femmes trying to like figure themselves out, or like going, as a young person, you feel very out of control. Things are just out of your control a lot of the time. And so I really put a lot of that forward into my work, because my work is so much about my own experiences, or I draw a lot from my own experiences. It's like my identities are just sort of woven in there. I've been asked before, or I've said this before, I've had these conversations before of like, if I didn't write a queer play, or if I didn't write an Indigenous play, does that still make it like an Indigenous play or a queer play? Like if the content isn't Indigenous and if the content isn't queer, does that then make it a queer piece of work or an Indigenous piece of work? But yes, because I wrote it. So I think my identity all of my identities and anything I create is going to be informed by all the communities that I'm a part of in some way, shape, or form. That's how, yeah.
Yeah, I actually, that's very interesting, Yolanda. And I actually would say the same thing. Like, I just always am trying to speak honestly from my own experience, basically. Like, that's the only way that I can think about writing. I don't really know how anyone else moves through the world. I just know what I've experienced. So, innately in that, I think my identities come out. At the same time, I find it really interesting, like in the modern day, like I'm it's not really obvious in this story, but I'm, economics is kind of like a touch point in the rest of the book. And I think a lot about lately about how identity and class have started to become interrelated, and class is sort of like becoming more and more important as our neoliberal world just develops. So I also try and like have my place of experience, which is I'm coming here as a gay guy and I know a lot about gay stuff because that's my life. But then and I'm Arab, so I have this immigrant perspective. But I also try and kind of just like have some disconnect, some distance, some critical distance from my identities at the same time, to kind of think about how the larger structures I'm implicated in work, given that. So yeah, that would be my kind of answer.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Great. Thank you. And we're a little bit over time, but Carellin, do you want to add to this? That's a short thing.
I would just say that I've thought of myself as a writer since the age of 6. So So it's an identity that predates most of my other identities, including female, lesbian, becoming aware of my own ethnicity, and all those things.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's so interesting.
I
Can I
was
just
8,
say
I think,
something?
so you beat me. Okay.
Can I just say that's
Anyways, thank
There
you,
you go.
Sami. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that's so interesting that you said that, Carolyn, because in Anishinaabe culture, our identities were like we didn't have gender traditionally. It was what your role was in the community, and I've really taken that on, and I think about my role as a storyteller, and that how that encompasses everything I do, and so you saying that is I feel so very much the same because I wrote my first poem when I was in 2nd grade, and it was like off to the races from there. Like I've been a storyteller and a creator before I was anything else. So I didn't even think about it that way. But as soon as you said that, I was like, right, our roles and responsibility in our community comes from like when the that act. And so yeah, that's really beautiful. I'm so happy you said that. Miigwech.
It's great. What a lovely, wonderful note to end our session with. Thank you. Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you, Sami. Thank you, Carellin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in person and online. Please purchase their books, The Pleasure of the Text by Sami Alwani, Bug by Yolanda Bonnell, and Learned by Carellin Brooks. If you're not in Vancouver, here at Word Vancouver, they're available to purchase online directly from their publishers. All right. So thank you very much. Thank you to the staff and volunteers of Word Vancouver, and it's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Miigwech.
Bye.
Thanks.
I saw you yesterday. I thought you looked so familiar.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes.
Acclaimed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Is that it?
I guess that's
And I
it.
just
I guess
saw,
that's
so,
I loved your reading, by the way. It's
Thank
so
you.
cool. Yeah.
Yours was